Hello, nerds, and welcome to a fresh take, the Batman review. We're gonna get to our panel's takes on the movie in just a minute. Super quick. Coming up this Thursday, we have an awesome guest, Danny Sandring. If you follow her on TikTok, I mean, tens of thousands of followers do. She knows just about every board game you can imagine. She has a really fun point of view on them all. So if you love gaming, great show for you. Please check it out. And then on Monday, we have two illustrators, cartoonists who are going to be joining us, who are going to talk about personal narrative in their cartoon work. So a couple interesting shows coming down the pipe. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, smash all that goodness. It helps us more than you know. But we got a big movie to get to, so we're going to stay right on point. Let's bring in our panel as we discuss the Batman. The big reveal. All right. And we are all met. Big group tonight. So for the audience, we are going to start off spoiler free and give kind of our macro takes, and then we'll let you know when we're going to cut into the spoiler filled version of our reviews. So with that in mind, let's just go around the horn. Anyone can start. Give me your sort of biggest takeaway, your big picture thought, and give me your 1 to 5 rating of the film, and then we'll get into details after that. Who wants to kick it off? Ed, go for it.
I'll go for it. I thought it was a great film. Now, I know that it's going to be one that's going to divide audiences because we have not seen this Batman on screen before. We've seen the dude who punches people, and that's it. We have not seen this crime noir Bat film, and that's what it is. So I really appreciated that for that tone. I had some issues with a few things, and I'm sure we'll get to at some point because it's me. I'm going to have beef with something. But overall, thought it was good. Ranks high on my Bat kind of list of films. I'm going to go super nerdy on you, Dan. You will appreciate this.
Okay, so, go for it.
If you remember the Batman 66 show, show.
Sure.
When he went to his study, he had that weird William Shakespeare head. Give it 4 William Shakespeare heads out of 5.
I love it. That's a deep cut, and I remember it very well. Absolutely.
That's my show.
Right on. All right. Zoe, what you got?
Okay. Very similar to Ed. I think my big takeaway is I really liked how much we got to more explore the world's greatest detective vibe of Batman. I thought that was really cool. I obviously, as everyone will learn very quickly, adore pretty much everything Robert Pattinson does. I have a lot of issues with this movie, and I'm very ready to talk about them. But I think overall it was a very solid 3 3/4 guy liner eyes.
Okay. Kessler, what you got?
Let's see. I turned 35 a month ago, and I felt 45 or 50, if not 60, by the time I left this movie. I was completely exhausted by it, and I wrote a review, and I gave it 2 crime alleys out of 5 crime alleys.
Darso.
I really liked it. I thought it was a really cool take on Batman that I haven't seen outside of a comic book or an animated movie or TV show. It was gritty. I really liked how it was a younger Bruce Wayne, early into being Batman, and not the same kind of vibe that Nolan or I don't even remember who directed the Affleck films. Gave us. I just really liked that it felt like 7 as a Batman movie. And that was really cool.
7 out of 5. That's impressive.
No. It felt like
Fincher's
7, the movie.
Yeah, it sure did. We're going to talk about that.
I did have complaints. I liked how it felt pretty grounded for a while, but I do have complaints about how it ended. It felt like the ending was too big. for like what it should have been. But I give it 4 dead Thomas Waynes out of 5. Yeah.
All right, Marianne.
All right, I agree with the whole crew. Although Kessler, I enjoyed sitting there for 3 hours. If I can binge 3 episodes of any show, I was into it. I really enjoyed it. I loved that we were seeing the detective. I love that there were procedural moments. It was terrific. And, the only thing also, the cast, everyone really resonating, but not all of the crema kind of, performances. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
What's your number?
I'm gonna say 4.5 cat eyes.
All right.
Oh.
So for me, I had a really kind of baffling experience in the film, because when I talk about any individual element from like a quality standpoint, I thought it was exceptional, and yet I did not enjoy myself at all. And really felt every inch of those 3 hours. And I'm not sure I've ever seen something so kind of well done that landed so very flat for me. So I felt pretty old too in it, but I am. And so I probably go 2 trips to the Mafia Run Club out of 5.
It's a shame that there
Iceberg Lounge?
weren't only 2
thank you.
trips to the Mafia Run Club.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're gonna.
I'd love it if we kept it at that.
Yeah, we'll touch on that as well. All right. So most folks mentioned something I think we can talk about without going into the spoilers, which I do really appreciate that this was a angle that they took, which is, I like that they went after the world's greatest detective kind of subtitle to Batman. I like that we got back to that kind of investigative, that perspective on it. Do you think that was, other than that being an interesting take, do you think it was an effective way of telling us the story?
I would think so. I mean, it's fresh. We haven't really seen it before. For those of us who are familiar with that type of comic storytelling, that was just like, oh, we finally get this on screen. I thought it was well done, but again, I do think it can be jarring for those who haven't experienced that. And like my theater, it was like a bunch of little kids in there. I'm like, I know these kids are either bored or about to be traumatized, especially by the ending, which I will not spoil. Mm-hmm. But it's just a different take. But for those of us who know, it's not a different take. It's it's an authentic take. So I was down for it.
I think for me, it was also just really refreshing, even outside of Batman. Just like, I feel like superhero movies in general right now, so high tech. Everyone has technology, all these supernatural elements and magic, especially coming in right now, which is really cool. But it was really great, and I don't think this is very spoilery, to just see such an early Batman and such a, like, again, detective crime focused Batman, and such a stripped down, didn't really have like had some pretty cool technology, but it was still pretty junky, still lots of stuff like thrown together. Pretty sure he stalled his car at one point, and that was just a really, I feel like I kind of needed to see that in a superhero movie.
Yeah, I will say, and we can get into this a little bit later if we get into source material. I don't think it's a spoiler, because I think a lot of the source material that they referenced, Matt Reeves, I think is the director name, right? A lot of the source material he referenced is a lot of stuff that pulls from kind of year 2, like right after the year 1 storyline for Batman. So I think that's public for sure. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is we had almost no Bruce Wayne. I mean, it was pretty much a Batman film. We see Bruce Wayne a couple short times. I think that would be spoilery if we get into like why and when we saw him. But and I think I do think that affected actually the way that I experienced the film, because one of the things you do get as the counterpoint to what's often the brooding Batman is you get almost the performatively over the top Bruce Wayne as sort of like the philanthropist, billionaire, playboy, that whole thing. And I missed that personally.
This actually, I think, really helped me enjoy it so much more, because I've realized about myself over the course of, the love affair with Batman that we all have. For me, it's about the bat. I'm not interested in the billionaire playboy. And sorry, I'm not a Patterson girl, but he can get it in the suit. He went there, and I wasn't expecting it from him. I wasn't expecting the brooding that is, the darkness of the bat.
You didn't expect a brooding Batman, or you didn't think he could do it?
I didn't think he could do it.
I
shouldn't say I didn't think he can do it. I wasn't expecting it from him. I'm not, like I said, I'm not that into his work. I can't even say really like what kind of frame of reference I have. So, and him in the suit, I liked it. I liked him playing against Zoe Kravitz. She was outstanding.
I have no casting notes. I think the cast is great.
So much. She was so easy.
I have one casting.
I have casting notes.
I have casting.
Wait.
I'm excited.
One question before we move on. But has everyone in here seen Good Time, the movie that Pattinson was in like a couple years ago?
Nope.
Same people that made Uncut Gems.
Nope.
Oh, this sucks.
That is like.
Yeah, I mean, he's apparently had some like bangers post.
That was incredible. That was an incredible movie, and it was like his best acting I've ever seen. And that he could definitely pull off like the intense kind of brooding Batman, well, I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but there's a scene where he really, really like shows out that I could see that from that movie too.
So Kessler, any other top line thing, and then we'll pull the spoiler cap off the lid here.
Most of my things do get into spoilers, but I would posit the question as we move into spoiler territory: is he even a good detective?
Oh well, I got thoughts on that.
Because I'm not sure I'm not sure if him and Gordon actually did any any useful detectiving, or if they just stumbled into some shit.
Okay. So at that, then let's rip this Band-Aid. If you have not seen this film, or you don't care about spoilers, or you aren't going to see it and you just want to hear us make fun of each other while we talk about it, hang out. Otherwise, I would move on at this point. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, and spoil away. It was a pretty convenient moment when he stopped being able to figure out things.
But even earlier in the film, they spend a long element of this film on a lengthy part of this movie is them running down, not even they think that they've solved the riddle and are just on the completely wrong path. And then they end up on another tangent talking about his parents, and they're
what
just
isn't a lengthy part of this film though? Everything's that's my whole everything. I feel like I could have had this exact same film at 2 hours and 15 minutes and had a very different experience.
Yeah,
I agree with that. But I will posit this, because when it comes to him not being the world's greatest detective yet, I think, at least to me as a viewer, I saw it as intentional. You remember the scene? We're in spoiler territory. There was a scene where he had to parachute, and then he screwed it up and fell on the ground and was flopping around like an idiot. He's only been doing this for 2 years, so it makes sense that he's gonna stumble around. I was surprised that he was getting the riddle so fast. Okay, he's got a little bit there, but the way he stumbled and struggled, I thought told the story of, this is a very rookie Batman who he can fight a little bit, but he's still finding his way. So that didn't bother me.
It's a great example. I wasn't expecting that fall. I wanted to cheer. There were many times in this movie that I wanted to cheer. There weren't many people in my theater though, so it was a very intimate experience already. But I wasn't expecting the fall. And I think that speaks exactly to the stage of where he's at in his, his transformation fully into the bat. and exploring his grief. You know, like the idea of vengeance, by and large, about as a theme, how it's used by the cat, how it's used at the end. It's the whole thing. It's so fluid. And I enjoyed those long scenes in the rain in the city. I loved it. I was languishing in it. And all right, it's not easy to solve a crime, you guys. Like, this is hard. Like,
He's not the world's greatest detective, is all I'm saying.
Minds. Paul Dano, please. He was a delightful freak. It was wonderful. He was just like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all these little moments. The fact that, oh my gosh, and Jeffrey Wright is Gordon. Like, what? It was wonderful. Wonderful. The way the two of them just fell off of each other. Yes.
I think it's so
and
interesting.
You had to endure it for 3 hours, right?
Yeah, I did have to endure it for 3 hours. That's exactly. I mean, what I am trying to put my finger on, what I find I don't want to undersell. Like, I really was like in awe of this film going experience because I've never really experienced anything like it, where it's a real polarizing film, and I'm not totally sure I can put my finger on it at what point that polarization happens. But like, people, I would say anecdotally, it seems like way more people really, really like it than don't. Like that's my sense. But the people that don't like it, like, really don't like it. And in my movie theater, like, most of the audience was like laughing out of embarrassment the whole way through, and we were kind of packed. So it's so funny that something that's producing such a like positive reaction in some groups is producing. I mean, it was like I'm trying to remember the moments that were like literally. It's very rare I've heard this, but like collective out loud laughing at like not funny moments in a movie.
Did y'all have theater reactions in your theaters?
Very little.
No.
Very little.
I had
Not
zero.
in-game,
like, none.
no.
It was weird. Like, totally different than a Marvel movie.
Right.
The biggest reaction that we had in our theater was afterwards when I left and I was in the bathroom. There were these like high school kind of bro dudes outside the bathroom being like, "Yo, bro, what did you think of Robert Pattinson?" And that was pretty much the theater reaction.
I also just was underwhelmed by the action. I really liked the walking down the hall lit up by gunfire scene, and that was like pretty cool when I saw it in Daredevil. But I thought it was really good in this movie. And other than that, I was like really underwhelmed by the action, like really underwhelmed. And again, I think it goes back to what I'm saying about that was a choice. I think you're all totally on point. Like they're showing the story of a guy earlier in his development. His skills are on the come. He isn't that experienced, right? He's making his mistakes, and there's an appeal to all that. And again, I think it was very purposeful and very crafted and very well executed. It just the execution. What was the end result for me was one where I just wanted to like tap out.
And I think that like I certainly appreciate that he was like an early in his career person. I mean, for me, like that moment where he base jumps off the building, it was actually like the moment when he gets up there and you can tell that he's like never actually been that high before and is about to do something he hasn't done and is like not confident in what he's about to do. That was like one of the better moments of the movie for me. And it was like soon after that where things kind of started to go haywire as the movie like went in all these different directions simultaneously. But like to your point about the action not being, I agree that the action wasn't that good. And you could say like, oh, it's not as much of an action movie. But then sort of when we get to the climax, they do some action movie stuff, like not super well. And that sort of, there's a version of this movie where, they sort of like put the Riddler away and like, that's the end. I honestly thought that the movie was going to end when like they were bringing Falcone away. I was like, oh, great, movie's over. And then there's like an hour more.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple points when I thought the movie was going to end. And this is from someone who generally enjoyed it. But that's one of my things in the dislike category.
to hit on Ali's note, which is a good point. I think the Batmobile was really cool. I wish that I could have seen that Bat car chase because I love a good car chase, but I couldn't see one frame of it. Like, it's one thing to make something dark, like brooding. It's another thing to make it visually so dark. I could not follow a moment of that car chase.
And
not
it
a
was
moment.
very much shot in like tight close-ups of the Penguin, a character that is in the movie for like 10 total minutes.
And Reeves said that like very purposely. He said like, we wanted on the car chase, we wanted the things like so that you were in the car with them and stuff. Like, it's cool, but then I can't see what the hell's going on.
I disagreed with that. I appreciate, I guess, because there was so much not action that I did appreciate more drama. That there was more drama. I appreciated the action. I thought there were great fights between Catwoman and Batman. Their first like spar against each other, that was awesome. But it was very limited after that. And the car scene, I did enjoy as well.
Well, when it comes to the car scene, you know what it reminded me of a little bit? Not to this extent. The worst of that is those freaking Transformer movies where it looks like
the Michael Bay style.
You can't see anything. It's like you're staring in a toolbox. It's just like, okay, there's metal smashing against each other. I don't know what's going on. It wasn't that bad at all. But there is a point that there were some frames where it's just kind of like, all right, I'm sitting beside Penguin, maybe. Like it was just not as, it just need to breathe a little bit. And again, I know it was all intentional and it didn't bother me. I liked the look of the Batmobile as well. It was like one of my dad's freaking cars, muscle cars. I love just how stripped down a lot of this stuff was.
I think that I also struggled with that scene because, like, especially in the second half of the movie, like, I fundamentally didn't always understand, like, why things were happening at that moment or what people were doing. Or, like, I didn't really understand why they were, like, chasing after the Penguin. And, like, after that, it turned out that he was, like, a red herring to something, but I didn't really understand like why that was happening while it was happening.
Yeah, totally. I actually experienced that too, but I still had a good time.
That was actually the one failure I had from like I'm contradicting my main statement of like sort of the craftsmanship of it, which I thought was generally speaking pretty darn high. It felt the story bouncing around like once we get into I mean, Marianne, you'd never confuse your L's and your Laws. You know what I mean? But once we got into like
that was pretty convenient.
Come on.
Also,
that was absurd, actually.
Once you got into a misdirect over how well you know Spanish or not, and that they come up with like 4 different potential like answers to a thing that you start ping ponging. Then you have the thing where he goes to Falcone's place. You give this big kind of emotional twist reveal. And then completely eliminate the power of that scene. The very next scene, as
that was
inexcusable. Alfred, inexcusable from a storytelling structure.
Yeah. That's
cut one scene or the other, but you can't have those two. It just doesn't.
Or have
what's
them
the point?
separated? Like have him find out at the end of Act 2 that his dad did a bad thing, and then find out like at the end of the movie or some shit that like that was not true.
That's one of my takeaways. Is like it is like one of my things that I didn't like is I genuinely believe that it's okay if it turned out that his dad was a bad person. Like that would have been great and fine and kind of interesting and maybe even like a spur of kind of closure on these early days of being like so deep and angsty to like actually take his money and his skills and move forward and do good on that name.
Industries,
I was that's one of my big didn't likes.
Well, and oh god, Dan.
So what do y'all think about like the Thomas Wayne story? Because Thomas Wayne has always been like is mainly considered a saint in like all Batman media, and they also made a choice of like making Martha Arkham,
right?
Instead of I guess of like kind of coming from obscurity.
There is source material for that they pulled from.
Yeah, a lot of the newer stories kind of paint him in a grayer light, which is cool to me because the world is not black and white. So it didn't bother me, and in some ways, that and the Catwoman reveal, I was like, I kind of saw it coming, but that's just because I keep
everything
up with
coming.
It. Well, yes, some days, but no, it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Do y'all think Falcone's like alluded to have killed Thomas Wayne? Do you think it was actually him? Because Alfred, I think, suggests like it could have just been some like random street kid that broke into the house as well.
Well,
I think
Is that what he was
doesn't
saying?
matter.
I don't.
exactly. It was that clear. I feel it. Well, so no, but I think and I totally agree on the gray, and I totally agree, Zoe, that I think it would be totally fine if it was that he wasn't this perfect guy and made a mistake. And
It could have
I
even been
think
cooler.
I agree, and I think, and I could be wrong about this, I think that actually was the intent. I think that my guess, I don't know, is that the director wanted it to feel a little ambiguous, meaning like you're getting Falcone's take, and then you're getting Alfred's take, which is he's seeing it through his lens that he was a good man. Like if they had structured that a little better, it might have created some like hanging ambiguity, but the way it was presented, it like gives you one reality and undercuts the other reality, and I'm not sure that's what they meant to do.
And I think that all of these things they fall into this like really big category for me of like things that the film, like concepts that it introduced that were like very interesting but didn't really lead anywhere or amount to much. So like it's interesting that like it had never occurred to me to consider the Arkham family in the Gotham universe. And it was interesting to me. I was like, oh, that's compelling that there's these like two dueling aristocratic families in like Gotham history, and like, oh, like maybe like at some point in the story, like maybe the Riddler's in Arkham or something. Like I sort of thought that was going to come. But like a lot of the things, it's like the fact that his mom was in Arkham didn't really matter. Like whether or not his dad was a saint or actually did some bad, it didn't necessarily matter, because they sort of just like introduced the concept he was bad, immediately undercut that concept, and then just sort of moved on with the movie. And I don't really know like how this impacted Bruce at all. And there's like a number of things in this movie that I found to be like really interesting concepts that just like, oh, that's interesting, and then they just sort of like moved on. Like the Catwoman's dad being Falcone was like an interesting thing, but then when she goes to confront him, it sort of seemed like he did not know that she existed. And then I was sort of like, well, what, like, why? Like, I mean,
I think that was
he should have abandoned her. Why did he not know about her?
right. That was like a 15 minutes of the film that I feel like if we're talking about how the film could have been a good 2 hours and 15, I feel like that's a solid 15 that could have gone, especially because like it really could have just been a creepy dude at that club that she saw all the time that was like kind of like not super great to her, and she saw him do shitty stuff. Like that could have still been that relationship.
And it gets into my core sort of miscast in the movie. I just did not buy John Turturro as Carmine Falcone.
Oh, I loved him.
I just did not buy that.
I thought he was great.
It might be because I've been watching Severance.
Why? Because
like,
why?
I just did not
Because
buy
of Severance? I've been watching Severance. Oh,
I mean,
man,
he did have a Jesus moment for sure. When he was walking down the hall at the end, I thought he was going to say click, and I did. But I honestly, I just have to rewind a little bit because I completely disagree with you and Zoe and Kessler. I completely disagree. It all makes sense to me. And I loved that Catwoman got 15 minutes of backstory all to herself. It was not a surprise to me that Falcone is Selena's father. I probably read it somewhere in one of the books. But that, and I knew that was the big, once that I was like, oh, that was the big reveal. Okay, maybe there's something else for me, but I loved seeing that story on screen. And I really enjoyed Turturro. Very subtle, another like, subtle performance, but it was all there. It was all there. And I loved the father-daughter relationship is again the parallel to a relationship that Bruce is having with his father. And that's why the two of them, I loved I liked it, you guys.
I have no, listen.
I gotta agree. I liked it too.
This is why I'm having such sort of a like fun, like I liked their chemistry. I know Zoe did not, but so you can get to it.
Literally, he had more chemistry in Twilight.
I thought they had great chemistry. I liked the spark the actors brought. I was super down for I'm always a fan of Colin Farrell and prosthetics. I don't know. It's probably the first time I've seen it. I just wanted to say that. like I
I
dug
don't
it.
think he
I
normally
dug.
uses prosthetics.
No, it was a joke. I just
That was addictive.
am very like, and yet it just would not come alive for me. And I feel like there were proactive choices. Goes back to what I was saying about the Wayne thing. It's not like I like Bruce Wayne. It's not about that. It's not about not wanting to get into Batman. It's about the role that provides in the story to give some contrast in color and tone that then allows for the darker thing to resonate. If it's all this wash, I had no contrast throughout the film.
The movie feels like a like, it feels like a first movie in a multi-series, like a multi-movie series, you know? And it doesn't feel like a self-contained film to me. That's probably my complaint. Yeah.
It feels like the things that you guys are asking to solve are literally the core of everything that Batman is. It's like he's never going to get over his grief. He can talk about vengeance all he wants. He's never going to be satisfied. It can't happen.
But it's not a problem with the intellectual line of that being the case. It's a problem with the enjoyment of me as a moviegoer experience. Like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, if you want me to sit down and watch 3 hours of that, you have to give me something that
I'd also make the case, like, intellectually, this movie was about him moving past the vengeance component, because at the end, he's like, it needs to be more than vengeance. Now, I never felt that emotionally at the end of the movie, but I think that's what they were going for, was that, like, he's no longer just going to be about vengeance. I think that was, like,
he says it.
The aim. He says it. Yeah,
he says it.
I saw that differently, though, because I feel like the whole I don't want to be vengeance is because look at the monsters I'm creating. We got these little Riddlers running around all over the place. So I think that he's like, okay, I had this take, and this was kind of laid throughout the movie as well. Yeah. It's like, is this working? Is what I'm doing working? Kind of not really, because I'm creating more monsters. So he realizes, okay, I have to take a shift. And to in Daniel's point, I feel like this is part of like a trilogy, and that kind of does work against it, where they're sowing too many seeds for the future. So yeah, that's to be careful, but I think all of that was intentional.
I
agree with that.
Go ahead, Dan.
You go ahead.
Okay, I was just also going to say I did really like how dark Bruce was, and I think I talked about this with you and Kessler, Dan, but it just was really finally nice for me to see, like, something I've always had this issue with watching like the other Batmans, and like it's just like the difference between the two characters. It's like this dude saw his parents die in front of him 20 years ago and then like isolated himself. Like, he's going to be carrying that grief and that trauma as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. And I think it was really nice to see that brooding overflow into the Bruce Wayne character, and how isolated he was, and how much they showed he was isolated, even from like Alfred and the other staff member who may or may not have been named.
She did have a name. I can't remember.
She did have a name. I think it began with the letter C.
But the Bruce Wayne counterpoint isn't. And I think they even address this in one of the films. It isn't about that he's just like fine when he's not Batman. It's that's part of the mask too.
Sure, right? But it's like still early. Like, this is still so
yeah. I'm not saying it's not justified. That's what I keep saying. Like that's my point. I keep coming back to that. I find so unique about this film experience. It's not that I don't understand the justification. It just was boring.
I thought he looked so good and brooding, especially at the funeral. And I know that he would not have looked as good if he was wearing his little happy mask.
I mean, I get it, but I gotta say, I did not like Edward Scissorhands looking Bruce Wayne. He was gross and sad looking. He got on my last nerve. But I understand why, because I do think later on we will get billionaire playboy who, like Daniel said, like, that's the mask. The mask isn't Batman. The mask is Bruce Wayne. So we might get that later, but that was the one thing that annoyed me, because it was just like he was just so unlikable. Ugh, I couldn't.
Agreed. They opened on him with his little crying tears. It reminded me of The Crow. That's when I wanted to have a laugh out loud moment.
That's it. Yes.
Well, it was absurd. I mean, like I said, I wasn't into him at all. I did not want to watch Patterson. I wanted to watch him in the suit. Everything was happening for me in the suit.
So, okay, wait. So let's talk about smaller decisions, because this is where, okay, like, did they give every cop the note? Like, every cop? They were like, all of you have really bad New York accents. All of you. All of you. Drop your register. Do like a soft version of the Batman growl, grow a mustache, bad New York accent. All of them. Like, what? What? It was such a weird choice. And then they're leaving at the end. This is my perfect example of how this movie could have been shorter and been fundamentally the exact same film, okay?
Yes. This is
when
so
they're
critical.
riding away with the motorcycles.
Oh my god.
They
Oh, that
say
was
goodbye in
beautiful.
a really long scene, which I was for, okay?
Yeah.
They get on their motorcycles.
They should just instantly go opposite direction.
Yes! They get on
What is
one
happening
shot,
here?
then we watch them drive more, then we watch them drive more, then we watch them drive more, then they get to the tunnel, then we hold a shot, then they pause, then they drive away. Why am I getting that much of the same shot?
Then you see him driving some more, and then you see him looking in the rearview mirror. It goes on fucking ever.
That was literally the only part of the movie that I thought they had any chemistry, was that motorcycle ride. I was like, this is what I wanted.
I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my
That
god.
to me was the symbolic summary of what the movie did. It's just I feel like you could have told the exact same story, and pulled 30 to 40 minutes out.
Oh,
Well,
really?
like, one thing, one thing is that you could have pulled an entire Riddler victim, because it's not every. I thought it was super interesting actually that Batman and Gordon are functioning as detective partners.
I like that.
And because usually Gordon kind of operates as more of a handler or a conduit to the police, and they're just going around it's like a buddy cop movie. We got Lethal Weapon happening here.
Gordon was
Without
chief
the
in
joy.
the Nolan
buddy
films,
cop movie
right?
without the joy.
Yeah,
But
well, and also their relationship doesn't really change throughout the movie. At the beginning of the movie, they trust each other entirely, and that trust is never questioned throughout. You never get a point where where there probably should have been some point where Gordon is I don't know how to trust this guy.
They go out of their way to reaffirm it constantly. You're a good cop.
Yeah, and because their relationship didn't change, and it's okay, you can have that fully trusting relationship, but it was the main there were more scenes of the two of them in the movie than any other pairing, but there was no arc to that relationship at all, and they kept kind of doing the same shit over and over again. You could have cut out an entire Riddler mystery. You could have cut out long sequences of the two of them, and you would have
Could
still
have
had
cut
the
a
same
club
arc
scene
with them.
easy.
I don't
Oh,
disagree.
definitely
with
could
you
have cut a
guys.
club scene.
But I don't know. I was having fun watching it. There was definitely moments though that I'm like, wow, oh, another riddle. Okay, cool.
I had these thoughts too.
The
Yeah.
riddles were fun, and that last scene, shockingly long. But I was like, oh, romantic.
Yeah.
They're so nice.
And the
I
sound
was
design of
having a good
everything
time.
is good. So I was
Another
like,
example of the
really
same
beautiful.
thing Dan said was during the climactic battle,
Oh.
Batman and Catwoman, they defeat everybody, seemingly defeat everyone. Thing is over. She's like, you can rest now. And he closed his eyes. I was like, great, movie over. And then all of a sudden there's one more goon.
Nope.
Out of
Just
nowhere.
kidding.
And apparently Batman has steroids on him or something. I don't know what that
I actually like that.
very
I like
green,
that.
very
He was
I
not
thought that
green.
was cool.
established at any point in the movie. They had never mentioned this prior. There was
I
Do you
liked
think
it.
it's Bane juice? Do you think it's like Bane juice? What do you think it
Bane
is?
juice.
That's the vibe I
No,
got.
well, it's literally adrenaline. Probably he gave himself an adrenaline shot. I
It
actually
was
like that
bright
idea.
green. Come on.
Oh, was it? I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
colorblind.
It was like
I-
green or blue. My
Oh,
friend
okay.
beside me was like, "Is that the Bane serum?"
Oh, okay. So maybe that was
Maybe.
it was. I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that he we got some utility belt stuff without it being too much. But it would make sense, I guess, if you're gonna be that part didn't. The adrenaline shot didn't bother me. But there was
the
always
adrenaline
more.
shot bothered me. It was it seemed like the entire battle was over, and then for some reason, then he has to cut an electrical wire, and
No,
then, I
in
didn't know
slow
what the fuck
motion. He
was
has to
doing.
cut it in slow motion.
Yeah, and then he has to light a flare, and he's
It's hard. It's hard, you guys. It's Superman.
Honestly, I thought the mayor
As they fall into
died.
water.
She was fucking assassinated, and then they're like, "Ah, no, she's good."
Yeah,
She was just shot
I
in
don't
the side.
I know.
Oh yeah, she was wading through the water.
Yeah, and then
and she,
he reaches
I did
out
think
to
that
the
was
kid
crazy
for
because she would be
15
losing so
seconds.
much
He's got his
blood.
hand out. to like rescue the kid. Then he leads them with the torch, like follow me as I go through the
thought it was
water.
so
It's just a
beautiful.
speed, like let's go, people.
I
I
mean, it was that,
1000% early in the movie. I thought that Gotham Square Garden was a background joke, but it actually was not a background joke.
Wait,
only
do you
thing
know?
that really
I was
bothered
going to mention
me?
that too.
There was only one scene that really bothered me, and I don't know if you guys remember it. When the dude whose head was about to blow up, and Batman gets this close,
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
and it blows up, and he's just got
yeah.
like no scars on your chin. Like
Oh,
that's bothering me.
all right.
I literally thought to myself, like, oh, his suit, he can take it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I'm
but
with-
he
I'm
was
with
like
it. I'm
his
with it.
close
chin,
enough to
though.
kiss the guy, and it's like, oh, don't even need a shave.
What's that
Both
actor's name,
Batman
Kessler?
and Alfred get blown up
Skarsgård.
at close range,
Oh,
and they're
yeah,
both
he's good
fine.
now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought Alfred was going to be dead for sure. And I thought it was going to be a totally, like, I thought it was going to go in a totally different direction at that
It
point.
was exciting. There were moments that we thought people were going to die, people that we love.
I
That's
did
the
not.
point, you guys.
I did not think he was going to die. But that's the whole point. Like, well, Alfred. Okay, so let's play that out. I actually didn't think Alfred was going to die because the way they were executing the movie. But let's say he was. You just said we're going to lose people we love. You're going to lose people you love because of your relationship outside of this movie to Alfred. Because up until that point in that movie, you had 2 scenes with Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
True.
That's it.
And I feel like in those 2 scenes you could tell how much he loved Bruce, but it was
Right.
and
It
it
was
was hard
unreciprocated.
because it wasn't reciprocated, and 2, it was more kind of like, oh, you're a parent dealing with a troubled child vibe, and obviously you love them, but it's not as easy to like attach to that. Besides just being like, oh, it's very clear you love them, but it like I couldn't really attach to it that much.
Dan, is one of your complaints that it's not another like true origin story?
No.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No, actually, I'd say the opposite. I'd say I think that they had the instinct, rightly so, to not need to give us an origin story, and then chickened out a little bit in the execution of it, and actually gave us too much of that.
Yeah.
Where we didn't need it, and actually that filled in. So actually, I don't think that it's the same thing.
Instead of showing
at this
us
point, we
Crime
don't need to
Alley,
see.
they spent like 45 minutes of the movie
So
discussing
many
what happened in
references to
Crime
it.
Alley. And like, I would have rather just not been mentioned at all. Like, we were totally fine in the Tom
couple
Holland Spider-Man
times.
movies not mentioning Uncle Ben at all. And we didn't need them to then in this movie go back and be like, let's take a detour that has minimal to do with the Riddler and what his whole thing is, and have this like lengthy conversation about how his parents died. We know, we get it.
Well, see, I think that they kind of had to in this case because the take was so different. This isn't like Spider-Man where like Uncle Ben is actually the hobgoblin. It was like some evil person. Like, because the take of it, again, comic readers might know, but like the mainstream wouldn't know, like all this weird backstory. I feel like they did chicken out a little bit. So they were like, we're not going to waste time on that, but we still have to lay backstory. So when we start talking about how Thomas is screwed up, people won't be completely thrown off. It's like, is Thomas a completely different dude? Nope, he's the same guy. We just won't show the pearls rolling around in the alley this time.
And because so much of the like how like why Gotham was how it is portrayed at the beginning of this film, like super crime ridden, like not many services, like very corrupt, was like so tied into his like fund and his money, and especially the fact that his money has been basically and underutilized from this point on. So I think it was really important that they kind of like dug a little bit into that.
Yeah, but wait, that unto itself was not unique to this movie. That's pretty much every Batman movie. It's a totally crime-ridden city, and people question the Wayne and their ivory towers and their money. Is it actually helping? Like, that's a pretty like repeated Batman theme.
But like specifically, I don't know. I just really felt they were really, really pushing that whole, what was it? Reformation, restoration, whatever.
Yeah,
they were really pushing that this film.
Renewal.
Yeah.
Renewal.
You could have a discussion about whether or not Bruce's parents were good people, whether or not his father was a good person, without also having to have a discussion about like the nature of their death. That was sort of the thing that like I didn't really, especially because the way that they did it, as we talked about with the back and forth, I could have done without it.
I think if you go back and watch this film, and I won't, but Marianne, when you go back and watch this film,
Yes.
I want you to mark out, because I bet you it's 8, 9 times how many times they bring up the nature of his dad. So meaning like, and how that affected him and his loss and how he's dealing with it. Meaning, like, I agree with everyone saying like you have to connect it because it's part of the way they're telling this story, right? I'm just saying they just kind of kept over establishing it at the exact same time as trying to not be an origin story, and then that's in conflict with it, I don't know. So I just say about something. Okay, let's talk about the cast real quick, or not real quick. Let's talk about the cast for as long as you want. I love this cast. Kessler, you said there's somebody you didn't like in it. What did you not?
Yeah,
like?
I think we talked about Turturro already. Like I didn't.
Okay.
He didn't work for me. It didn't work for me.
Yeah. What did you want? What did you want more from?
Well, like, I don't know. I just like here's what I think I needed. I think that I needed to see him actually do something despicable early in the movie, because like I didn't take him seriously, as it was sort of like people told me Carmine Falcone was evil. And like I know, like I'm familiar with the comics. I've read, a few of them, and like we have Carmine Falcone in the Nolan movies. But I think that like for me to fully believe John Turturro in that role, he should have executed someone in like an early scene or some shit. Like, why is it? How does this person have the whole city under his thumb when in my reference point seems like the Penguin is a worse dude?
That's not an acting thing, though.
Well, no, but the thing is, like, Turturro is an actor that I've seen a lot of shit. He's playing against type here. If you're gonna cast someone against type in like the evil mobster role, I think that like it would have helped to solidify that if you see him do something like super evil, but he's not really in the movie that much until like a 15-minute stretch when he's like really in the movie. Like you kind of get like 1 or 2 scenes with him in the first half of the movie. Then you get like in quick succession, he's got the scene with Bruce and then the scene with Selena, and then he's dead. Or like the other way around. I don't know, whatever. And then he's dead.
For me, I hear you. For me, the actual scene when they at the funeral, the way he delivers his lines, had that, at least for me, really conveyed that like this is a dangerous dude, and he conveyed it like real subtly, and it wasn't huge over the top, but like I felt the shark. You know what I mean? Like I felt it, so it worked for me. But
I don't know, Kessler. It feels like you might have wanted a cliche mobster. I mean, I think that's what this movie was great at doing, including the backstory. It was exploring it in a non-cliche way. We didn't need Crime Alley. We didn't need the pearls. And I appreciated Turturro's performance just because of that. Because he wasn't playing this like goon mobster. He didn't have to. He didn't have to kill someone in the beginning. But it doesn't sound like from your perspective whether Turturro had killed someone or not in the beginning, whether the action existed or not, his performance for you wouldn't have done it anyway. Did you need the indication of the
I don't know that I ever found him as menacing as y'all did, and as I think that like for the parts in the later part of the movie to really hit home, for me at least.
Do y'all think this movie should have been rated R?
You mean
I'm kind of
like we should have gotten a rated R version? You
Like
mean, or
like it just like towed the line, like it just could have been more.
Honestly, like I don't know how that they got like the dude with the bomb around his neck like into the PG-13. The person whose like head blows off. I was personally like, this is like borderline sadistic. I was like,
when the gerbils are going to eat the guy's face off.
The gerbils are eating the guys.
I take my kids to PG-13 movies. I luckily thought to not take them to this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the 7 moments for me.
Well,
like,
okay, so let's talk about that. Seven, and also I mean, it wasn't Seven like it was like Seven. It was like they ripped off Seven. When they get into his apartment, it is like line for line ripoff of certain things. And I know that Reeves went. That was my biggest issue with the film. That was outside of the film. I got so pulled out because I was like, how could they do this? The scene where the cops get into his apartment and they're going through the journals and they just talk about it being the nonstop ramblings. That's an actual scene from the movie Seven.
But anyone can write, like, madmen write like that into journals. Like,
But it's the exact scene. Like, it's the, like, they catch him, they at the station, they lock him up. It's the order of the sequence. Then they go to the apartment and they start going through the stuff. And I mean, I couldn't.
That seems like a pretty normal sequence of events, though.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
What
Seven in
seems
so
like a
long.
normal?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean,
but
if you're telling
It
a,
was
I mean, you're telling a
frightening.
similar story of a madman.
yeah,
You know,
But it's not the
like,
similar story. It's a shot for
it's just
shot.
no, I'm
reasonable
just
to
saying
me.
that madmen write in journals like that over and over and over again, right?
That's
what they
fine. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there were some similar things about the madman. I'm saying the guy has lines. He says something to the extent when, I mean, maybe you guys haven't seen Seven in a while, but when Spacey's in the back of the truck, he's like, people will be talking about what I've done or whatever. Like then we get the Riddler has that exact same line with him. He talks about them being in it together. I mean, it was, and I'll say this: Reeves talks about how he was trying to homage like all these other films in this movie, right? Like he was trying to do. He very purposely was trying to do Hitchcock. He was very purposely trying to do noir. He was very like whatever. So maybe he was purposely trying to do Fincher in Seven, but that was like too on the nose for me.
Too far. Yeah, because I mean, even like a crime wall like that with all the lines, that feels pretty standard procedural, like detecting, you know. So and just like the writing in the book, these are the cliches. All right, here.
But well, it was
So-
and, well. That's my other sorry. The take I actually would have is I think you're all giving this too much credit for not being cliche. Like I'm not saying I appreciate the fresh take, but like a brooding dark every Batman that comes out, we talk about how it's the new darker brooding Batman. Like that's what you do when the Batman movie comes
Clooney
out.
was never brooding.
The Keaton blanking on the director's name, Tim Burton Batman, everyone talked about this new dark imagining of Batman. It's always the new dark imagining of Batman. Like that's how these things are sold.
Well, yeah,
know?
I mean that Batman was dark compared to like the '60s like television show.
No, but I'm saying
Yes,
every new
we're
Batman
getting it.
sequence we talk about, and even the Affleck was the dark, realistic, brooding. I mean,
No,
I'm just saying that is.
Well, what is your who broods best for you?
No, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not actually seeing that as a criticism. I'm just saying, like, let's not. There seems to be some like discussion about how this is like a decidedly new, like, way of approach. It's like I'm the Bruce Wayne part was new.
Like
Bruce Wayne
narrowing
part was
in
new,
on-
but they could have kept it. I didn't like it.
Yeah. I just
So,
you know.
what did everyone think of the Riddler and Paul Dano's performance in this role, and how his plan came together throughout the film?
I will say at first, I was not a fan because early in the movie, I didn't feel like we got enough of him. He was like around and he just kind of like vanished in and out. And he didn't really win me over until like the last third of the movie. That's when it felt like Batman rogues supervillain reimagining as the freaking Zodiac killer or whatever he was.
Yeah,
So
I
by
don't like
the
Gimp suit.
end, I was cool with it. First half, I was just like, this just feels like a dude.
I'm the complete opposite. First 2/3, really loved it. My relationship got a lot more complicated in the last, basically from when he was put in Arkham onwards. I started feeling a lot more weird about the character.
Why? Give me more.
I don't know. I'm kind of like looking at my notes, which I wrote in the car back from the movie. And I just like,
Was it the 4chan of it all? Like, did that make you uncomfortable?
no, well, so, okay, there's two things. There's like there's like the character itself and the performance of it. And then there's also the plot. Happy to talk about either. The plot part of it, I was kind of like, I feel like they had to put that in there to be like, oh, and remember, like, don't do a violent revolution if you think your community needs change. Like, it felt very like we
I
have
agree.
to say that we have to like make it very clear that this vengeance is bad so that people out there don't think that like they can take action to change their community, which I think was kind of like
billionaires are not actually just bad. Like, you
Right.
can't just say that. Yeah, no,
Right.
I had a real problem with that.
that.
I
I
agree.
had a huge kind of problem with that. And then I also just like didn't as much love the kind of like spiral of the character into kind of like clearly someone like with a lot of mental health struggles. Like, I was
You
enjoying
thought
the
when-
character more when it was kind of like more almost like normal person doing these things vibes.
When you
if
thought
that
he
makes
was
sense.
feeding like dudes' faces to the gerbils, he was like normal and not mentally
I mean,
ill.
you know what I mean. Like,
I'm not sure
not
I
like
do.
blowing up 7 seawalls in this concocted plan that would happen once he got sent to jail.
Yeah, like he seems more like a low level madman that like has like some technological skill that can get his videos shown, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, the whole city's flooding. Like
This-
that didn't
that-
seem
this-
like
yeah.
that was gonna be.
Mhm.
The
I
thing
gotcha.
that-
I gotcha.
Thank you, Dan.
It seemed too
I
big.
gotcha.
Yeah.
The seawall thing really came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
I don't think they had mentioned the word seawall at any point in the movie until they were blowing up. And I don't feel like we adequately saw them blow up. There's no point in which Batman can or tries to stop them from blowing up. And I don't
Well,
really
because
feel like
it's too late. It's already happened when he finds out.
Yeah, but like, you know, I don't know that
Because
we
he's not a
really
good detective.
like felt the effects of like how much of this city is underwater now. Like, they seem to be able to drive their motorcycles quite a distance at the end of that movie. So
I will provocatively say, I think the movie, if you eliminated that entirely, the movie is exactly the same. If all the people are gathering inside the garden for the anointing, you know, the mayoral ascension, and he's got the people up there to take her out, and the reason he's taking her out is because of her lies.
That would've been better. That would've been
exact
better. Okay.
same movie.
Yeah, the shift
But-
from like targeting corruption and evil to the shift of like, I'm going to do this thing that just will impact pretty much everyone in this city, no matter of their responsibility for our city's spiral and demise, was a tone shift I did not like.
Yeah,
well, it will
but
also
you're
impact the
forgetting,
people who it will impact the poorer parts of the city more than the wealthy parts of the city.
You
but
could
remember Daniel's earlier point, though. This seems like the first part of another movie. That's the setup to No Man's Land and Batman, the Batman 2. Like, that's what.
Right.
this
I
is.
mean, I think it's the
Maybe.
setup for Bruce needing to spend his money to like help the city. Like the city's going to be wrecked in the beginning of the second movie, and like it's going to be probably like a montage of him.
You might be totally right, but that was to the
Yeah.
detriment of this film.
Yeah, not excusing it, but I guarantee you that's what it was. It was set up for.
Yeah, you might be right
And
about that.
it's not that hard to like make a villain story that like ends with the villain attempting to cause destruction to the city. It's just like this villain at no point in this movie up until the point that it was happening. That was never like a part of his aims, his goals. There was no setup to the Riddler being a person that, and even like the seawall, blowing up the seawalls had nothing to do with the riddles. It was a thing that like really was tacked on to everything else. And even if it's setting up something else, it shouldn't feel tacked on in this movie. It should be a natural, like, you should get us to that point through the course of the movie, and then the next movie can be in a flooded Gotham, sure. But like here, they just flooded Gotham and it had nothing to do with anything that had come before it.
I mean, it was the last riddle. It was underneath the carpet. That the
Yeah, but
guy's
what-
father worked was a carpet
Right.
guy.
Right, but the riddle was figuring out where to find the confession. The riddle wasn't leading him to some kind of sea deluge. I just am curious. Like not curious. I don't understand how it moved forward the story in any way. So if it's just set up for the next film, fine. But if I've got 3 hours of film, I don't know if I need that.
It does feel like it's set up for something else. I mean, now Gotham is destroyed. When I saw that, I was like, oh, next movie's going to be New Gotham? Because that's a
Rebuilding
fucking thing.
Gotham and this and the now keep in mind, and not this isn't justification, but we are getting at least one, if not multiple TV series between this and whatever movie comes next. We're getting a Penguin HBO Max show, right?
Mhm.
Is that correct, Kessler? So
Yeah.
and
Wait,
they say
with Colin Farrell?
With Colin
and
Farrell.
they say, you know, as he's overlooking the city, they say, and in the vacuum of all this, new people will take power. And like while they're saying that, they're framing on him.
Yep.
So they're really telling you he becomes the next crime boss, and that's going to be the next arc. So I imagine some of that city rebuilding and New Gotham and all that stuff happens in this TV show. And maybe they use it the way, you know, Marvel uses the snap as a justification for every goddamn thing they do.
But it's the No Man's Land storyline. It's like, okay, Gotham's screwed up, so you'll have all these different crime factions taking over Gotham.
I don't know that story. I don't know that arc. Is that an actual Batman arc?
Oh yeah, it's a Batman
arc.
Oh
yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that one.
I think they even took some stuff from it for that Gotham TV show too, which
but
that's another argument for another day.
Yeah, it's also all over Harley.
So
what
crime bosses?
That's it.
What would you all want to see come next? Both which characters would you want to see in the next one that were here? Are you excited for our boy Druig to enter the picture? Like
I don't know.
We haven't talked about
Dan has no ability to like cross-reference actors in different things.
I'm terrible.
So if you missed it, the Joker will be played by Barry Keoghan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who is in that final scene, and he was
that's
one of
Keoghan.
our Eternals who love to brainwash people.
Got it. Yeah, I'm fine. Whatever. Joker, bring on the Joker. Let's go.
You know what I want? I want to see a new villain. I am tired of the same 3 or 4 dudes. There are a million Batman villains. Give me Hush. Give me somebody.
I think Hush has got it. That's what they heavy like imply.
I mean, it
right?
says
like
yes, they
implied 15 seconds.
Give me Court. We could do Court of Owls. We could do them because we talked about.
They hinted Court of Owls. They hinted Hush. They hinted a lot.
It's got to go Hush and introduction of Ivy.
Yes, I just don't want to see the same 3 people. We've done Bane. Like we're good. Give me somebody new.
I think that's a big thing to extrapolate also to how I feel about like pretty much a lot of the content that DC does in general on the screen. Show us more than the same 4 dudes.
Yeah.
Like how many times can we try to reboot Superman, fucking Aquaman or whatever?
But rebooting Batman was okay.
Okay, because it's Robert Pattinson.
So
some others work I should check out. Good Time, I got that.
I will say
please
I will say that so unlike when this goes back to my assessment of the film and its quality versus what it executed, I will absolutely be willing to give this group another shot, right? It's not like I think they like did some like bad rendering or like didn't exhibit craftsmanship and didn't cast well, you know what I mean? Like I'd be willing to see another round of it. But I'm not like excited to see another round of it. Is how I'd summarize where I'm at.
Would you all want to see the Riddler come back in a future movie, or would you rather leave him in Arkham?
I wouldn't mind if he came back. I think there's more. Again, I think this is just
wear the
part
suit.
1. So we're going to wear the question mark pajamas.
Yeah,
I don't know if we can do that.
I want the question mark pajamas.
But I think that we'll see his descent into more crazy because we're already starting to see a little bit of that, and Joker literally whispering in his ear is going to get him more riled up. Yeah, I would like to see another rendition of it. Doesn't have to go Frank Gorshin over the top, but give us a different spin.
Did any were there any twists that I guess my other big problem is like every moment of this film felt very telegraphed to me. Like at what point did you guys realize who the Riddler was? Like was it at the reveal? Was it a little bit before? Like I feel like
had we seen him before?
I don't feel
yeah,
like we've
not
seen
who he was the actor, but like what you did like that he was going to be the reporter's son. I figured that out the second they talked about the hit that was put on the reporter. I was like, oh, okay, it's the Riddler's son.
Oh, I don't even
did
think I
not get
realized
that.
that he was the reporter's son.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was not
Yeah,
something
that
that
seems
I
to
was
be
aware of.
Well, guys, I'm the world's greatest detective.
Clearly, you're better than Bruce at this point.
All right. Well, we were over an hour here. Any final notes? Any thoughts people want to share? I am just in the large. I'm fascinated by how polarizing it is. I find it really. I find the discussion around it more interesting than I found the film. I'll tell you that much.
I thought it was great. I love that we can debate it because everybody has great points, and I just want to see where it goes next. I thought it laid an interesting foundation.
I personally, just the last thing on my didn't like list is just I'm really excited to see a film with more than one female character in it. And I still had a lot of issues with how I felt like a lot of what, like, I think this was like a very stellar rendition of Catwoman, but like I feel like a lot of her stuff was also just kind of moving along Batman's story, which I didn't really like that much. But I think, I don't know, sound design was so amazing. I hate how overused Ave Maria is, and I loved every time they played it in this movie.
The double Nirvana drop bugged me, but in general, I agree.
And to Zoe's point, like, does every woman in a Batman film need to be sort of the key that will solve Bruce's internal pain? I felt that it came out of nowhere when that happened with Catwoman in the Nolan movie. And this movie certainly implies that Catwoman's love could solve Bruce. So I don't think
literally every female character. Yes.
So
Marianne also mentioned Poison Ivy. I think that would be a dope character to do a realistic version on, an eco-terrorist who is a poison expert. That would be awesome.
Well, and if they do Hush, you can do her and connect her back, bring Catwoman back. You can do the whole thing.
Yeah, which is going to tie into New Gotham and everyone taking their own little.
And then find a way at the end to remind you that eco-terrorism is bad.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's definitely some PSYOP stuff going on. Or I should say definitely, but felt that way. Zoe, on that point though, I felt very conscious of that while watching the film. Does this? I'm not advocating for the position. I'm presenting it as a question. Essentially, the only two, maybe Alfred, I guess, but like Catwoman and then the woman who's going to be the mayor, right, are the only two female characters really that have any presence in the movie. They are essentially like the best people in the whole movie. So I did feel like there was some like, and because we had the 4chan thing, like it did feel like there was like one of the themes going through the whole thing was like, this is all like toxic masculinity ruining everything. Does that impact that in any way?
I think that's also something I was kind of thinking about. And again, like I really liked how they did Catwoman, and I thought the mayor character was really awesome. But I think there's probably a balance in the middle somewhere. But
yeah. I mean, it's certainly.
I think that for the movie to climax at like the mayor's like event, we could have used actually more of the mayor throughout the film.
100%.
That was like not really established that well to me. But like men will literally become Batman before going to therapy.
All right, I'm gonna exit us on that note, unless anyone feels like something is left unsaid. All right, thanks everybody. Take us out, Dan.